It is my great pleasure to welcome you to our second monthly webinar hosted by Recruity on the name From Insight to Impact, Soft Skills, Coaching, and the Future of Talent. In today's workspace, only hiring for skills is not enough. We talked about that the last time. The real challenges often start when someone joins and someone is onboarded to the company. That's when the worst nightmare of managers and HRs happened. When communication breaks down, when you start putting too much attention on problem makers and underperformers, and then the high performers quietly disengage. We think that what's missing is soft skills, personality traits, and actually the cultural values of the company and that sort of fit. Most companies are still guessing on how to measure and how to develop them. In this 60-minute webinar, Recruity and our guest, which I will with pleasure introduce shortly, Bloomlife, will unpack how to rethink talent from hiring to coaching while using behavioral science, psychometrics, psychology, and real-world experience. And I myself couldn't have imagined two more suitable speakers for this topic. So it is my utmost pleasure to introduce Danilo Simoni and Radoje Cerovic. Two of them bring in more than 50 years of experience in HR and management consulting, starting together in Italy, actually. Two of them studied psychology in La Sapienza before growing their amazing separate careers. They are both have worked with top Italian corporates and executives. Danilo Simoni is the CEO of Bloomlife, company that helps individuals and organizations develop and thrive, and they are present in more than 10 countries over 3 continents. Rade is today a CEO of Communication Strategies and Consulting. It's company present throughout Southeastern Europe. He's a co-founder and chief strategic officer in our very own Recruity, a startup that is building AI psychologist consultant that is helping companies with assessments with the goal to optimize hiring, learning and development, and to improve the mobility of internal talent. Before we delve into the conversation, just want to again echo the warm welcome and the heartfelt thanks to Danilo. And Danilo, yes, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Good evening to everyone.
Awesome. So without further ado, I would start off this conversation with a, let's say, fairly straightforward and easy question to, let's say, get a feel of the philosophy that both of you have developed from your experience regarding talent, regarding pinpoint talent. Do you think the talent is found, that the perfect talent is found and hired, or is the talent developed? To put it in a simpler terms, should companies hire for current abilities and skills, or should they hire for potential, for someone who is coachable?
This is definitely one of the most important questions in general, and it's the basis of any kind of strategic thinking that you might have about talent development. Why is basic? Because we usually think about talents like some really rare skill set, somebody having this really rare skill set that is present somewhere on the job market, but you need special services to hunt for them. And it's a bit like hunting for unicorns. We would love them to exist somewhere. We would be really fond of having one, but we are not sure if there is one. We are not sure if we are able to maintain that beast. We are not sure that we know how to nurture that unicorn, and very probably if we get one, we wouldn't know what to do with it. So this idea of searching something this is ineffable, which is very difficult to find on the market, is the basic idea that in the last years we increasingly started to abandon. Not abandoning the idea of looking for unicorns. They are valuable and they're very important. But there is this very interesting way of thinking that they use at McKinsey, a McKinsey company, like on our slide number 2, if they can put. They think of 3 types of people, like these unicorns we are defining, very rare skill sets and everything. And then the category B, They call it the category A. The second one, okay. Yeah, these are the unicorns, okay. While the B are those who are malleable, who are able to be developed, who are who are at the beginning, they are not superstars. They are able to become superstars, which is much easier to find and to recognize. And yes, they need nurture, they need development, but this is a much more feasible strategy for talent development than the previous one, than the one looking for category A. So absolutely, what you need a way to distinguish between A, B, and C, which is, I hope, be the subject of what we will discuss later.
This is a perfect timing to let's say pass the ball to Danilo, because I'm very curious in his opinion on how can you recognize a currently steady performer that has very high potential to become a superstar, to become a leader and a champion within that company. What are the traits that you have recognized over the years in your work?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Even before that, we should ask, why should we look for talent? I mean, what I've seen all over the years is lack of clarity within the organization about what they are really looking for. And I think Rado described that very well. I've seen many of them looking for the best in class, and very often the best in class is not the right one, not the right fit for the organization itself. So totally understand this, and I would agree on this distinction between like top performer, high potential, and even definition of a high potential should be questioned. High potential on what? Because working within an organization requires so many different dimensions, and sometimes if you excel in one of those dimensions, you may be very lacking many others that are very important for your life within an organization, especially if you are in a management position or you are in a leadership position. So even before developing and fostering this talent, we should understand what kind of talent should we look for. So after that, what I would say that when I have to hire someone, I'm very careful about what I call their settings. And what are the settings? We are quite familiar with the concept of mindset. Maybe we can be helped by one of the charts, the one with the 4 setting: body set, heart set, mindset. This should be, I think, number 2. So there are at least 4 different dimensions we should look at, and each one of those dimensions refers to a different set of organizational dimension. So yeah, the next one, please. As we can see here, we have at the very bottom what is called the body set. Body set is our ability to transform energy into actions. It is much to do with how we deal with stress, how we can really use our biology, basically how we treat our body in order to have balance between the different aspects of our nervous system, so that when we are under pressure, we don't get into fight, flight mode or into survival mode. So I would definitely look for people who is able to manage their body set in a way that doesn't shift too easily into survival mode when they are under pressure. Then the second dimension I should look at is the heart set. So the emotional balance, the ability to recognize their own emotions and to channel the energy and the information that is there in every emotional reaction into something bigger, into something higher. So people who do not repress their emotional reactions or do not eject emotional reaction toward others, that is able to elaborate, to process the emotions so that they turn into something that is usable within the team. Third dimension is the mindset. We are probably much more familiar with the mindset that is the, the beliefs that we have, the culture that we have. It is even the way of thinking that we have, and we will definitely aim for a growth mindset. It's a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck that distinguishes between growth mindset and fixed mindset. So growth mindset is the mindset that define people who thinks that everything can be developed, that the human being is an evolution process. So if there is something that I don't know today, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to know it tomorrow. If I'm not there yet, I can put an effort, I can put a commitment on my progress, on my evolution, and I will reach it tomorrow. So growth mindset. Fourth dimension that is always neglected within the organization, the corporate world, is the soul set. Soul set is everything related to the existential part. So the set of values, the sense-making process, the clarity about the goals and the meaning. I really would like to have in my team, in my company, in my organization, someone who has clarity about their purpose, about their main goals, because I don't want people disconnected by their purpose. Because if I ask them to do something that is not relevant, that doesn't make sense in their evolutionary journey, this will affect motivation in the long run. This will affect productivity and will affect, of course, the results that I'm going to get as a company.
This is a super interesting framework. I have questions, of course, just questions coming into my mind after hearing this talk. I see a lot of people joining through LinkedIn, through YouTube. Please feel free to ask questions that you see relevant to Rade and to Danilo. I will gladly abandon my own questions and schedule to forward the things that you guys want to hear out. But until we get them, just to forward the question to Rade, I'm very, very interested in similarities that you see with Danilo's framework, with the Big Five model, and how we use it to pinpoint top performing profiles and profiles that are that have potential for leadership. So maybe if we can get the slide from Rade.
The last one
just,
is maybe
just see and maybe start the discussion of the differences, but also more the similarities that we can notice between these two approaches.
What is fascinating is that what Danilo described is can be also described, but exactly the same reality about in other words. Well, let's use, you mentioned this Big Five model. Big Five or Ocean model is one of the main, for those who are not psychologists, one of the main models to describe personality traits. Maybe the most accredited one in the science right now. So this Ocean model is about openness, how open you are to new experiences, conscientiousness, how diligent you are with your tasks, emotional stability as opposed to neuroticism, to being anxious, to being very, very not stable in your emotional life, extroversion as opposed to introversion, agreeableness as opposed to one who is less agreeable, means more prone to conflict and to maintain their opinion. Now, if these are the five elements, we need to understand if we are looking for talents, what are we looking for? How can we use this framework in order to find a talent? But first of all, Danilo mentioned a very interesting set of areas to discover, which is very likely to be easily discovered when you have your internal people, when you have your already onboarded resources that you can follow through time, and you can check with the different types of evaluation and assessment, etc., etc. But what if I'm right there hiring people and I want to hire them for high potential? This is almost irrelevant if I'm looking for unicorns, because unicorns, if they are, don't test them. If you can afford them, try to onboard them with all the risks that this might bring along. But what about this type B, which is maybe the most feasible strategy? How can I select for people who are able to grow, who are able to develop themselves? Now, first thing, don't try to rely on your gut feeling. This is really a major sin in this process, is to try to recognize during your job interview that this is somebody who's really able to grow, who's really able to be developed, who's malleable, who has high potential. Very often, this ends up in selecting narcissistic personality disorder people, who at the job interview, they look perfect. Believe me, they can fool everybody. They can fool psychologists, they can fool experienced managers. Don't try to rely, or at least not strictly or only, on your job interview. So what you really need is to use more specific methods, and as we know, as the science gives us information, is psychometric testing. Psychometric testing of Big Five. These are the Big Five elements. And this is, as you can see, one of these potential profiles or ranges where the potential profiles of high potential people can fall in. Look first in the last three categories: emotional stability, conscientiousness, and openness. So we need people who are very open, means they accept different types of thinking, they are open to different experiences, they are very conscientious, means they are diligent, they are fully on task, they want to bring things at the end, and with a lot of precision. And above everything, you need them to be emotionally stable. This was a discussion that used to be among recruiters in time, that they said there was this preconception or assumption that if you hire a really high emotional stability person, he's so cool with himself that he won't be able to change. He don't want to change. That's not true. Actually, what we found is that this element is the narrowest one. We really need from 90 to 100%, the last 10 percentiles of emotional stability, in order to call them high potential people. Also, we need them very conscientious, maybe not 100%, which it might be perfection, but at least 95. Let's cut on 95. And we need them very open to experiences. For what concerns agreeableness and extraversion, this is a set of characteristics that might vary according to who are you hiring. If you are hiring somebody who needs a lot of communication, then for sure they need to be more extrovert. But if you need people who are more, engineering professions or things like that, you can allow yourself even much less extroversion. The same thing is for agreeableness. Agreeableness is a nice thing to have among friends, but not necessarily a good thing to have among managers. So if this guy is going to be a manager, future manager, or at that moment going to get the managerial position, then don't look for a fully agreeable person. You need them to be from 50 to 75 percentiles of agreeableness, which means that they are able to affirm their position. They are resilient to persuasion, and they will stay with their opinion long enough to be sustained. This is basically the Big Five profile that we found through our recruiting experience to be an ideal assessment at the very beginning of the high potential. All other types of assessment are allowed, but please, in this case, include for sure the psychometric testing.
Amazing, Rade. So we have questions from the audience coming in. The first one in the line was from Mr. John Nasca, and in advance I apologize for the names that I mispronounce in the future. The question is directed to Danilo. So epistemologically, how important is the intuitive perception of reality within the soul set category that you presented? And to follow up that question also from John, and how can we apply that to see things as they truly are?
Wow. It's quite amazing question from John. I'll be very happy to answer. Maybe we can come back to the slide or to the following one. So I think John really nailed one important aspect of the soul set, because every one of these four dimensions, they express different intelligences, what I would call evolutionary intelligences. Yes, the next one, exactly the next one. As you can see, there are related to the soul set exactly two intelligences, evolutionary intelligences that I just named. And it's not me, of course, it's the literature that names intuitive intelligence. Basically, soul set is made of two main intelligence. The first one is intuitive intelligence. Intuitive intelligence is related to the ability of a person to really understand, feel, sense is subjective reality. So intuitive intelligence is not necessarily a way to understand objective truth, but is fundamental to understand your subjective truth. This is very important when you have to understand what are your goals, what is your vision, what is your mission in life and within the organization. What is the meaning that you give, for example, to your professional life? Why it is important for you? What are you looking for in your professional life? What are your values? What are your ideals? So if you do not use too much intuitive intelligence, just like that, you stay at a superficial level and you may be subject to many conditioning. So for me, intuitive intelligence, this is my understanding, is really what allow us to be sure that the path that we are taking is the right one for us. Is that specific intelligence that gives us the North Pole, the final destination of our journey. And for a leader, having intuitive intelligence is like a key factor to really understand the vision of the organization. So great leadership happens when you are able to find the common ground between the organizational vision and your own personal vision. If there is a common ground, if there is an overlap between the two perimeter, then in this overlap, this is where lie your excellence, your best performance. Because as you are realizing, as you are manifesting the vision of the organization, you are manifesting yourself as a person, as a leader. And then where inspiration comes from, where you are able to really bring people into the organizational vision. So I think intuitive intelligence is definitely one of the most important intelligence that a leader can have, that a talent can have, but we have to consider that is related much more to subjective truth rather than objective truth. It's what is important for me, what is important for other people, what is important for this team, what is important for this organization. It really relates to the sense-making process that everyone within the organization should do in order to really understand what to do every day. Hope I answer to your question, John, because it was not an easy one.
Yeah, definitely. It was an amazing answer to a great question. Basically, if you don't mind me trying to summarize it in my own words, just to also confirm that I understood it correctly. When you speak about intuition, you don't mean relying on a gut feeling or not relying on facts, but instead looking for a broader vision. So, for example, if I'm going to do a financial projection for the end of 2025, it is a good thing to rely on the data, on the Excel sheets and etc. But if I want to think about my vision of where Recruitee will be or where I will be in 10 years, that's when the intuition comes in, right?
Definitely, exactly. And yeah, of course, gut feeling can be part of it. Actually, there are two main theories about intuitive intelligence. If I just can take like 30 seconds to explain.
Absolutely.
Two main big hypotheses. The first one is that intuition comes from the the blending of three different operating systems working together. So when the body set, so sensation from the body, and the heart set, so emotions, gut feelings, reactions, and the mindset, so thoughts, understanding of reality, data, they meld together and they work like in a, I would call it a big data functioning. That's where intuition comes from. So it's not the cognitive process. It's not just an emotional process. It's not even just feeling something, but it's the combination of it. And it happens very specific neurophysiological conditions. For example, flow state is one of the conditions where intuition comes from. We need to have certain specific physiology, such as balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, a certain level of heart rate variability, specific brain waves. Now the neuroscience is really giving us so much information about it that at the time when we graduated, it was not available, but in the last 10, 15 years now, we know much more about that. And then the second theory, where intuition is just like kind of, we may see the mind as a radio tuner. So when we are able to really get the right frequency, the right vibration, we receive information, we download information from the system. So intuitive intelligence, intuition is specific information that we receive from our overall system. Again, putting together different data and different information from very system, but we are there. And again, it needs very specific conditions and needs very specific training, because the great things about the evolutionary intelligence is that they can be trained. So coming back to how do we develop the talents of our people once they are recruited? By training, nurturing, nourishing their intelligence, amongst them intuitive intelligence, of course.
Awesome, Danilo. And there are more questions coming in. I think you're going to love the following two questions, both of you. Just again to say thank you very much for people that are following us and for posing questions that are so inspiring. And also, Danilo and Rade, thank you for the talks that are so inspiring, that are resulting in these questions. So we have a first question from... Again, I apologize in advance for the mispronunciation to everyone, but a question from Manasvi Verma. What distinguishes high-performing leaders from high-performing managers? And where is the line between those two? And where does that line blur?
I will try, then I guess Danilo will add something. I'll try to be extremely concise. If we talk about leaders and managers, it might look like a tiny line, really blurred line between these two. But if we talk about high-performing leaders and high-performing managers, they are definitely different. They're really different. And this might require an entire webinar just on this topic. But what I would say that what It's the ability of a high-performing manager is to ensure that the process is constantly flowing on, and that it's managed within certain quality KPIs, etc., etc. They are there to ensure that the rules are followed. The leaders are there to change the rules. They are there to change completely the rules. If you have there one test, if you want to know whether you're a leader, potentially a good leader or not, then ask yourself: is there anybody around you in your social environment who would say for you that you're crazy? If there is at least one person, then you have a good potential for a leader. You need to be a little bit crazy, that's for sure.
In my case, I think I crashed the test. So many people.
Yeah, too much of it.
It's not a good sign. No, I totally. I do agree, and the definition, I really like the definition. I think, management is about allowing the status quo to flow as smoothly as possible, literally by construction of future. And if I may build on that, what I would say is that in some way, high performance managers are more like predictable. So given specific characteristics that they have, you can predict that they are gonna do good. And what rather just showed us, I think it's a great way to predict many of the things. With leaders, it's much more complicated because leadership happens in a specific context. So it's not really about my characteristic, it's about the fit of my characteristic with the needs of the environment, of the context, of the system. So leadership is always a systemic process between an individual and the context that the individuals live. Same person in different contexts can do very badly. Was at the time of the Republic of Rome, before the Roman Empire we had the Republic, and was a famous general during the Republic called Cincinnato. And Cincinnato was a perfect leader for times of war. And in fact, he was a great general. It was always called, anytime that Rome entered a war, Cincinnato was called. But in time of peace, he was sent to his farming house. So no bother coming to Senate. Stay in the fields, because this is not the leadership that we need in peacetime. So really, depending on the feature and the characteristic of the leaders, you may do well in a specific context, you may do very bad in a specific context. So it's more situational. It's more difficult to predict.
You actually predicted the next question perfectly, because we have a very, 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 very interesting, intriguing question from Christopher David Congleton, who's sending his regards, saying that the topic is very interesting, but he wonders about another way of thinking about it. So inspired by the search for the open mindset, some people have personalities with higher cognitive closure. Certainly, they can be good leaders in the right situation, the right environment, and the right constraints. I am not one of those people, but they are a good anti-unicorn case study. My sense is that maybe it could be useful to extend this unicorn search beyond merely looking for proto-unicorns and continue to study better the social environment and influence on different personality styles and plasticity that is available across personality categories. Again, he's sending regards, saying that I have poor context on your purpose here, and I'm just a fan of Radoje's work, so he's wishing us all the best. Christopher, heartfelt thanks for the question and for the regards. Radoje, Danilo, I believe this question touches a lot on both of your points.
I'll try first. Maybe This is another question that would require another webinar or even more. So I'll try to abuse of this question, picking elements of this question, because Danilo already elaborated on the contextualization. When I was at the beginning of my communication training, my trainer said, if a question starts with, is it then that every time or always or everybody, as soon as you hear these words, you say, no, it's not. What? Doesn't matter. The rest of the question doesn't matter. But could it be that sometimes in certain situations, yes, the answer is yes. It can always be true. So the contextualization here is an extremely important thing. What we don't have right now, we don't have the possibility to contextualize because we are speaking on a broad level. This is one thing. Second thing here is that the proto-unicorns, or if I get your question, Christopher, the proto-unicorns, or those who are developable, the type B McKinsey type of personality or candidate, it's not that we should rely strictly on that, especially in certain situations, in certain contexts. For instance, if you're a startup, then hiring a real unicorn would be a great thing for you, because your culture in your company is not yet established. We are malleable. We can grow together with that person. He can drag us along, and we can become unicorns as a company one day. Okay, this is great. Even in specific situation when you have very specific task forces, extremely important tasks or jobs to be performed, etc., etc. But just think of hiring Messi for your local football team. What's going to happen? Messi is not going to stay with you. Messi is going to go away. You can't afford that Messi. And even if you can afford him, the rest of the team will be overwhelmed. They will not keep up with this type of performer. So what you need give up to Messi. You have the opportunity to hire him, but say no, not at all. Develop as much as you can, coach as much as you can, develop exactly what Danilo was explaining before. Develop your people in order to support this guy. Another thing about contextualization and the neuroscience that was mentioned by Danilo is a very unpleasant fact that the three things that I've already explained that are elements of good malleable people, high potentials, etc., etc. So the openness, the emotional stability, etc., etc. All these elements are less likely, this is a really unpleasant fact, but it's a scientific fact, less likely to be found in social classes that are exposed to stress. The more you are exposed to stress in your early childhood, the less you're open, the less you're emotionally stable, etc., etc. This is a type of evolutionary reality that is based on neuroscience. But once you pick a high performer that was exposed to stress, then you get the best one. If that person was exposed to stress in his early childhood, but nevertheless developed in an open and emotionally stable way, then you get the superstar. That's basically. I'm sure that this was not all of the intention of Christopher's question, but I tried my best.
I really love what you say, Radha, about people who could overcome difficult situation, difficult challenges. They tend to be really top star. But then, of course, statistically, this is not very likely to happen. But this can lead our conversation to another concept that I think that is related to what Christopher was asking, and I think it is very important. So how can you develop leadership? So is leadership something that you can train or not? And in my opinion and my experience, I think what you can really train is the attitude toward your own evolution as a human being. So, as leadership happens in the relationship between an individual and a system, you cannot predict where the system is going to go. Especially now, where the level of predictability and the obsolescence of predictions are so high. I mean, the whole scenario is changing every month. So it's very hard to predict. So how can you build your leaders for the future? If you are an organization, small organization, big organization, doesn't change too much. Or how can you prepare yourself to be the leader of your own company, of your organization? I have studied what the top companies are doing, and I've seen there are 5 main I would say lines of developments, 5 different things that you can do, and maybe we can be helped by the first chart that I just shared. And you will see that the first thing that you can do to develop your potential, to develop your talent, is to be fully aware of your personality, of the impact of your personality on the way you relate to others, you communicate, you lead, you understand reality. Because our personality is like it's a filter. It's just like eyeglasses that we put. It's what really allow us to see reality, but it's always a distorted reality. So our personality will always have an impact, and of course, our personality will have some dimensions that will help us and will support us in our growth. Some other dimensions that can be like the dark side. That can be something that if we don't know well, can create blind spot, can challenge our growth. So first line of development in terms of really trying to evolve as a potential, evolve as a leader, is really this clean up process. This cleanup process by being aware of the impact of our personality. And then, of course, you can use different tools. Big 5 is huge, and many psychometrics tools are built upon Big 5. There are other models as well, but this is something very important. The second thing, the second line of work, the second line of development is the waking up process. So I think it is really imprescindible. It is necessary to know how to work on your state. Working on your state means you have to know how to raise your energy, your level of awareness when you need it. Because depending on our state, we are able to use or not to use our abilities, our intelligences, our resources. So if for some reason we are very brilliant persons, we have very good emotional balance, but we are not able to manage our state, so that means that we may get into fight-flight mode quite easily, survival mode quite easily, then we are not going to express our ability. So self-leadership is really about managing our state and our level of energy. Third line of development is related to our intelligences, what we just saw in our setting. So we want to learn how to nourish and nurture our different evolutionary intelligences so that we don't get short when we really need it. The fourth line of development is the growing up process. So it's related to the level of maturity, psychological and emotional maturity that we have. And it's related to the gravitational center that define what is important for us in life. You can think of it by making reference to the Maslow hierarchy needs, for example. So where you are in life, are you in a moment where like survival is the most important things. You're in a moment in life where belonging is the most important thing, where status, prestige, success is the most important thing, self-realization or transcendence, where you are in this period. This is define your level of maturity, and depending on your level of maturity, your way to express your talents is going to be different. The last line of development is to really learn to allow your internal transformation. So anything that you get, anytime you have an insight, anytime you have a growth in terms of your interiority, you are able to transform it in something that is external. So you have a new idea, then you are able to, from this idea, to have new behaviors, new actions. From this action, you are able to transform the culture of your team. From the culture of a team, you are able to transform the organization, the process, the technology. So it's like a full, integral, transformational process where you're able to really elaborate what's happening within you and be sure that what happens within you has an impact on what you do and has an impact on the system where you belong to. So this is what big companies are doing. This is the way they are developing their talents and their potential. And I have to say that the first one, so being aware of your personality, is probably the most used methodology in the corporate world all over the world, especially big groups, because the level of obsolescence of the technical skills, of the managerial skills, of the fact that now it's so easy to learn something new that honestly technical skills are not predictive or what you're going to do in the future. It's all about you manage your settings, your personality, your level of energy, exactly what we're saying here.
Definitely.
Amazing. Thank you very much for elaborating this, Danilo. There are no incoming questions at the moment, so I'll take the opportunity to pose some of my own questions. There are, though, the again, greetings and thanks from the Manasvi, John, and Christopher for your answers, and also greetings from one other great leader and great CEO, our good friend Alessandro Napoli from San Francisco. So just to take a moment to send back the greeting. But to go for the question from my point, then we touched upon soft skills. We touched upon the characteristics of good leader, how to recognize them, how to develop them. To put let's say a final point in these conversations, a question for both of you: what would you say are the skills of the future, especially with artificial intelligence being more and more prevalent within the workforce? I know my first job role was as a junior consultant for Rade. My job was to do research, to prepare deck slides and do analysis, which is done by ChatGPT in a second. Probably if I was 2 or 3 years late in the market, I wouldn't have gotten that first job. But what are the characteristics that HR people should have their eye for today? And what are the characteristics and skills that incoming graduates should start developing so that they can be leaders, that they can go into the market where they can bring value?
Yes, and this is maybe the most paradoxical thing of this technological evolution, this sweeping technological revolution that we are seeing around us with the artificial intelligence, is that paradoxically what becomes extremely valuable are human skills, not those types of skills that we were running after in the last years, like technical skills, very sophisticated data elaboration, data engineers, all that stuff. They still, don't get me wrong, they are still required, they are still very much in demand. But what seems to be clear at this moment is that human creativity, human empathy, ability to communicate, ability to inspire others, ability to this Cincinnatus ability that Danilo mentioned of let's come with me and be ready to die because I'm calling you in this marvelous effort to go beyond the lines of the enemy, to fight regardless of the fear, etc., etc. These are extremely human abilities. I cannot imagine the artificial intelligence able to do this type of thinking. And without getting out of the metaphor, yes, we are not fighting the barbarians in our everyday life, but we fight with the competitors. We fight with, like, you can imagine the chief sales officer encouraging his salespeople to cold call and be persistent in that, never get discouraged, never. All these things are not things that can be done by the artificial intelligence. And what we see that people are increasingly aware, although the artificial intelligence have already trespassed this so-called Turing tests. Yes, in some cases, I am maybe not aware whether I'm talking to artificial intelligence or to a human. But in these demanding human tasks, artificial intelligence is still not there, and I'm not expecting the artificial intelligence to become in the following years even close to that ability, the ability to touch the emotions, the ability to answer the right question that can be asked to somebody who's in difficulties, etc., etc. Now, what I think will be very important for the future generations and for those who are approaching the market right now is to develop these human skill sets, like communication, like emotional management, like stress resilience, like persuasion strategies, etc., etc. All this is something that can be developed. There are amazing ways to develop it. You need to approach it strategically. You need to approach it even before you get to your job position. But then good companies will build upon that, will do it on their own, will hire companies such as Bloom and similar companies who will provide the necessary, very sophisticated expertise in order to help people grow in these soft skill abilities. This is what I see as a paradoxical effect of this AI revolution.
Yeah, I have slight different perspective here. So I definitely agree on the fact that developing your human skill set is going to be a key factor. What I wouldn't subscribe is the fact that artificial intelligence will not be there soon. And I think, honestly, it's already there in terms of managing intimate interaction and intimate relationship. Because the data that are coming from the last research on the effect of coaching based on AI chatbot or even psychotherapy led by AI are just amazing. So honestly, if I have to think about my job, I have a psychological background, worked as a psychotherapy, now do executive coaching and I train. Many of the things that I do can be done by my avatar at the moment. And to be honest, I've built my own avatar that allowed me to do many things thanks to the interaction of this human-tech synergy. So building on what Radha said, I was saying that human-tech synergy is going to be a key factor.
Absolutely.
You have to be really aware. You cannot allow yourself not to master the actual technology, whether you like it or not. You cannot really allow yourself not to master your human evolution, your human dimension, because you're going to play between these two things. And the challenge, I think we have a really great challenge, and who does our job plays a role. Because the last technology revolution was really bad for human abilities, human capacity. Because internet 2.0, 3.0, social media created a business model that was based on distraction that really destroyed our ability to focus and destroyed our emotional intelligence. Again, research here is astonishing. So we can see that the generation that started their life with a device in their hand has lower level of emotional intelligence compared to previous generation. And this is due to the time spent on the device that is built and created by the best mind on the planet to distract yourself from yourself. So the last technology went very bad, was not good for the human being. Now we have an opportunity. We have the opportunity to lead, guide, help the development of the new technology in a way that can be beneficial for our human evolution. And we can use the AI for our human evolution and human growth. I use AI as a coach, as a mentor, as a teacher, and I challenge the AI, the co-creating scenarios, co-creating new ideas. That's a good friend of mine, Andrea Colametici, a philosopher. You should go looking for him. He is an editor. He published a book called Hypnocracy. And this book was out with this Chinese author, Xun Shangwei. And he had an amazing success all over the world. French president read it, many compliments. Sorbonne read it, invited him for conference, for workshop. But the fact was that this Chinese author, Shangwei Xun, didn't exist. It was just the creation of Andrea Colametici with AI. So a co-creation of something that wouldn't be created if it was just one of them. AI alone cannot do it. Human being alone can do it. So the future is going to be all about this co-creation, and we like it or not, we have to be there. And what's the last thing that I've seen the last generation? One thing that I think is very important, you need to have at least one vertical of expertise. So, because now the temptation will be to go everywhere. And this is fantastic. I think this the great drive, the great contribution of the new generation, this ability to move in different fields. But at least one vertical of expertise is going to be needed, because AI is going to be able to do practically everything that you do. You need at least one thing where you're going to be very, very good, where it's going to be really hard to substitute to.
Allow me to add something to what Danilo said. Yes, absolutely. Okay, it was not my intention to say forget about the knowledge and forget about the technical expertise. Not at all. Actually, in our idea of Recruiti, we've built this system that is based on what we call the hybrid intelligence. Means that for the task of AI is there where AI is good for, while the task of humans is there where the humans are good performers. And blending together these two things is going to give us the best outcome. What is very important is there is this idea that we call the transhumanism, a kind of philosophy where people imagine the future where we are seamlessly intertwined with machines, where we have pieces of body that are machinery and that interact with the biological reality, etc., etc. And some of us think we are not yet there. We are already there, because right now the artificial intelligence, even without wires and connections and interfaces, is intertwined in our thinking process. So our final product of thinking is a co-creation, necessarily a co-creation between our human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And this is something to be considered.
Rade, Danilo, thank you very much for all the amazing insights. There are more questions coming in, but unfortunately we do have a hard stop at 8 p.m. So for everybody who followed, everybody who listened, especially all those who engaged, our heartfelt thanks. Be free to drop us a DM to me, to Danilo, or to Rade on LinkedIn for any follow-up questions that interest you, or for any discussion. We very much welcome the discussion. So to conclude this second monthly webinar of Recruitee, Rade and Danilo, thank you very much. I know that I have enjoyed myself greatly. I know that I again learned a lot from these conversations, even though that I had the opportunity and pleasure to talk about these topics on a couple of times with both of you. It was again a pleasure to listen to you. So for the two of you and for our guests and listeners, thank you, and I wish you a good night.
Thank you for the invitation. Have a good night.
Our pleasure.